Hello and welcome to some planar geography. We do world building here on the channel, and today we're leaving the central plane to do it. We're talking big concepts, and if there's time, we'll zoom in down to something smaller at the end. I'm Lewis Nichols, and like most DMs, I started with the Dungeons and Dragons format. That meant we had an astral plane where you floated around through a dreamland on a silver thread. There was the ethereal, also a plane of positive energy and another one of negative. There were 666 levels of the abyss and 9 layers of hell. Don't forget about the elemental planes. Most of the planes were alignment locked. Funny thing is, I don't really remember the names of the ones where the goody goods lived. When we created the Pellicar game system, we differentiated ourselves and invented a slew of new planes. These were not restricted by alignment, but most of them had some crazy physics that would each be appealing to certain extreme philosophies. We didn't really have alignments. I still don't, but there are still demons and devils and angels and such. Later, I added the idea of pocket dimensions. The Dresden series, my Dresden series, not the other guy. Anyway, that one was all set in the Dower Urbane cluster of interconnected pocket planes. Finally, I decided on one more revision. The ethereal plane became the elemental meniscus, a thin layer of a plane clinging to all other planes. In the multiple physical dimensions of the astral, all these bubbles, some infinite, others tiny, all floated independently yet connected. On the astral side of the ethereal meniscus, in spots, but not everywhere, lie elemental nodes. These great pools of resources are rich in earth, water, air, and fire. This is a storehouse of the basic building blocks of a tactile reality. The minor ones are around as well. Elemental steam, ice, lava, dust, radiance, and so forth. The central plane, or prime material if you like, is at the center. The planet Pellicar is at the center of the center. The center being a point where spiritual energy, the power source that turns the collective unconscious into gods, is the most potent. Alright, that's the big stuff. Now, before we move on, it's your turn to do some small stuff. Leave a like, leave a comment. Are you enjoying the content? I never have a shortage of video topics, but if you want me to get deeper into my planar geography, let me know. Otherwise, it's probably not going to be something that we add much detail to anytime soon. Also, have you seen my TikToks? More importantly, did you find your way here via the Tiki-Talkies? World Builders Library on TikTok exists solely to funnel viewers here. So if you're here, being there won't buy you much, except for some fairly regular North Bay weather reports. But that's just me being weird. But if you got here from there, I would love to know, because if there isn't helping me here, well, what's the point? Second thing, do what you want. As a world-building DM, there are no wrong answers. You can hand-wave it all and use somebody else's published system, or you can build it from scratch. The thing is with the planes, they are so bizarre, I feel like that you can give up any need to make sense to your players. All the rules are off the table. I wouldn't mess with character abilities too much, but ultimately nothing has to be the same, nor does it always need to be predictable or even repeatable. This goes double for the chaotic planes. Just the fact that there are numerous infinite spaces breaks physics so badly it should be clear that anything goes. Okay, back to our main topic, our part 2 exercise. You see, the thing about these alternate planes, people live there. The Gith are the most notable, but there are more. How many more? You're the world builder, as many as you like. You can populate your planescapes with the usual mix of elves, humans, and other Velito, or make some stuff up. In my campaign's campaign against Dagon, the good guys are in an information gathering phase. It's fighting teams doing the intel work, so they will certainly act when they can. The Hessian Authority has never been the sort of place to discourage personal initiatives. I mean, this place is codified paying taxes on bribes. I have never run a state with such a weak central government. But I digress. One of the off-plane locations that keeps popping up in the intelligence is known as the Villeneuve Basin. on the ethereal meniscus. Let's build it. Let's make it weird, but grounded in logic at the same time. Question 1. Why does it exist? Let's say it's a trade hub. 2 days from the Palace of Shimmer and a Freed stronghold. It's a week away from the outskirts of Balgan Regia, a Githyanki empire with a pop closer to 1 million than 100,000. Down the chute, it's weeks away from passable corridors onto the Central Plane. It gives access to the Jasanowick River Basin and population zones on Rothius and Pram. What do these trade routes look like? Shallow routes look a lot like desert camel trains. A few dozen to a few hundred merchants, guards, and followers moving along with pack animals. Some might move from city to city, rarely dealing with the public. Instead, they drop off and pick up from warehouses like long-haul truckers. Others come into a settlement, acquire rights to trade at a local market. There they set up and sell direct. Individuals might stay for days or years, only to eventually leave with the next outbound band of traders. The deep routes, up the chute, might be larger beasts like astral whales or nautiloid skyships. Some of these trade bands might appear from the right angles as fleets of merchant traders sailing down astral rivers. Speaking of rivers, living off of the Central Plane does not exempt you from the need of food and water. Villeneuve imports its water. You remember those astral camels? Just one can haul thousands of gallons because of the laws of physics. Well, lack of laws of physics. Well, they apply, they're just easily broken. The deeper in the astral you get, the less gravity matters. So, you siphon off these big bubbles of elemental water nodes and float them as a balloon. Of course, instead of floating them up, they float deep. Remember, more than the regular dimensions, not just up, down, left, right, forward, backwards. There's at least deep and shallow as well. Maybe some more. It's hard enough to conceive of just one extra. Until you learn to turn your head in 5 or 6 dimensions, it might just look like a rope trailing off into nowhere. Talk about head on a swivel in a 3-dimensional game of chess. The settlement keeps most of its ready-use water floating in an inverted cup of ice maintained by a colony of frost mephits. It's a few hundred feet above and deep and above the ground, with mesh textile strands hanging down to wick the water towards fields and households. Heat management. It can get cold out there, folks. The basin is near 2 elemental nodes. The first is a mishmash of fire, magma, and steam. Where it becomes pure elemental fire is where the Ifrit live. But before that, the magma and steam are great for producing light and heat. Average Villeneuve temps are in the 80s, that's Fahrenheit, 25-ish Celsius. This is also where the place gets its glowy light source. What does it look like geographically? Well, hopefully you're seeing a map. And it's not the best map I've ever done. I do much better at a bigger continental scale than a smaller city, or I'm horrible at battle maps. But anyway, it's not really a centralized town, but more like half a dozen little centers and some outlying farms that are not pictured on the map. It's on an earth node, so it's like a little valley with the ground being real dirt. There are plants and a few animals. Gravity is barely a thing, though large globs of earth do attract other matter. It's just where you have slopes, down becomes relative. You're never really walking up a slope or down a slope. The ground angle just changes. I went a little off script, so we're going to hit that again. Things are arranged on both sides of the rift that leads deeper into this fairly large node. The node actually expresses itself on the central plane inside a range of high mountains. But that is getting way too far off topic for today. There are pits and craters around the basin, but things built on the slopes feel gravitationally level. Imagine if you could stand on a wall as easily standing on the floor. Stranger are the extensive fields around the basin. They sit off of the XYZ axis so that they look like they're floating as fixed points around the settlement. The Villeneuve Basin is only about 1.5 miles across at best, but the total ground area is about 5 times that amount. There. Is that clear as mud? Who lives here? The oldest population in town are remnants of Githyanki trading bands. They gave up life on the caravans to become farmers and armadillo ranchers. Humans, even with their weak ass can't see in the dark eyes, do well just about everywhere. They led a second wave of settlement along with elves and halflings. The dwarves came later, not much later, to mine the Earth node. Time is difficult in a reality where history can literally rewrite itself between ages, but everybody seems pretty confident that these events set the stage about 5,000 years ago. A Trazon warlord from Phoenix is one of the most recent notable arrivals. His house consisted of hundreds, significantly affecting the demographics of the area. Trazon are a species I'm adapting from Game Brew Tomes. Welcome to the 5e 2024 bundle. They're goat-headed dudes with some movement perks. I'll have to change up the lore, of course, but I intend to maintain as much of their original spirit as I can. So, these guys showed up about 100 years ago, and after them, lastly, a migration of Thrycreen from about 30 years ago. That leaves us with a Volito demographic chart of... Is it on the screen? Did it work? I think that you should have one of these charts for all your regions, but, you know, you do you. This leads to an overall population of about 3,000. There are a lot of inns and a few caravan yards here as well. I didn't picture them all very well. The merchant population can swell the basin past 10,000 total. Most trade is done between caravans here, with the settlement making a little tax on each transaction, plus water, food sales, and yard and market rentals. There's always so much to say. But we better move on to part 3. Don't forget to leave a like and a comment. This is a page with positive themes. I'm not trying to make anybody look bad here. I'm certainly not the kind of content creator that harps on the negatives of all these games that we love. I may offer different ways to do things, but the original way is still pretty good. The important thing is, now and always, to have fun and support others. Alright, why is this important to the war against Dagon? First, a little perspective. In recent history, the Hessian Authority and surrounding regions did not know a lot about the outside world. Not the planet of Pelakar, and certainly not the other planes. The powers that be kept it this way for a few reasons, but it all had to do with maintaining a degree of isolation. This protected them from invasion from stronger powers throughout the world, and it appeased the naturally isolationist and quite significant population of dragons in the area. And they all had a reason to fear. The London Vale is one of the richest reserves of precious metals and alchemical goods in the world. Post-Umbra, big worldwide crisis, the Hessian Authority doesn't have nearly as much to worry about. They are one of the few world powers that actually came out ahead, largely due to this isolation. So, now they find themselves in this big regional war against Dagon. It's been going on for a long time, really, but it's really heated up, mostly due to a bunch of PCs meddling about. The problem is, the good guys don't know much about the workings of the demons beyond the central plane. Demons and other fiends use these astral ethereal trade routes to move in force or move bulk goods. When you're bringing a major demon over, it really doesn't matter where it's coming from. However, moving 10,000 Vrock over is much easier if they're sitting just across the border ethereal plane. The Villeneuve Basin is on routes favored by Dagon, so there is a chance he could be hurt here. Just as importantly, this might be a place where more intelligence could be gathered. The Hessian Authority is in a similar position to the Native Americans in the days of early American colonization. They just didn't understand the problem. They might have been able to fight on the front lines, but attacking London wasn't even something they could conceive of. The people of Northern Marikoth have figured out they need to unite and will pick some fights, but don't necessarily understand the enemy's true goals or what their bases of power even look like. I feel like that might have been a lot of rambling without much context. Sorry for that. D&D tends to be a chop off the head sort of campaign scenario. The situation I've created makes it a lot harder to do that. Demons are very escapable, very hard to pin down. Dagon has at least one full, more or less traditional fantasy army, potentially two or more. He has strong points and caches of resources. He has allies and even more potential allies. There are many ways the party can approach every problem I throw at them. They've gone to great efforts to form and support this alliance they're part of. They've taken several major demons out of the fight, at least on the Central Plane. A journey to this valley would be an intel mission that might reveal hard targets. In all likelihood, after the party finishes their current mission, they'll get a report from whatever NPCs traveled to the basin. I'll decide who went and what exactly their goals and procedures were. I'll roll some dice, and I'll see what they've learned. If anything, maybe they won't survive. There is a good chance it will just add 2 to 5 potential missions to the list that already exists. If the PCs plan a mission to the area, there will probably be a follow-up video. If not, there might be a blurb in some campaign update or just a side note or something vaguely related. I like this synergy of world building for my existing campaign, creating videos out of it, but I can't spoil too much on a public platform. We've got 2 videos past this one planned. One is Toby's follow-up, more campaign prep work, but also insights and advice for doing high-level campaign prep work. I've also got an eco episode that I really need to do. We left the Ponderosa Posse in the middle of a major mission, one that will go a long way in determining the future of Armitage. Update, that script is mostly written. No game this weekend, so maybe I'll get both scripts written. Update, I didn't. Made some good progress. There's never enough time to get everything done that you want to do. Thank you everybody for stopping by. I love each and every one of you very, very much, and I'm glad that we got to spend a little time together. You are important to this world. We need you. Hang in there. Keep positive thoughts. I'll see you next time. Cheers.